Hey folks, David Stewart here. Dungeons & Dragons. This game can be whatever you want it to be. In fact, any tabletop RPG system that you are playing can be whatever you want it to be. That's the thesis of this video. Let me give you a little background. I see a lot of drama. I see a lot of people complaining about Wizards of the Coast changing gameplay elements of D&D that are quite classic, wokifying the game to different degrees, either by portraying classic character types in a more diverse sense or whatever you want to call it, or most recently considering getting rid of racial bonuses in the game. And I want to push back against this a little bit, not in terms of like they shouldn't do this, but really just it doesn't matter, because if let's say Wizards of the Coast says we're getting rid of racial bonuses in Dungeons and Dragons, well, you can just add them back in, because however you play the game is really up to you. So if you like the fact that there's a racial bonus of a certain kind for a certain type of character, you can always just put that back in your version of the game, or make it stronger. If you feel that the racial bonuses are too nerfed, you can make them stronger. You can do whatever you want. You can create racial animosity and hatred as strong as you want. You can create kill on sight, attitudes towards different races. It doesn't matter, because it's your game and how you play it. It's really up to you. Part of this is what I call the video game mindset. People who are playing tabletop RPGs who are really coming from a background where they played video game RPGs, World of Warcraft, or maybe like a JRPG like Final Fantasy. And they're carrying with them into a tabletop scenario this mindset that the game rules are what they are and you can't alter them. You can't play house rules or something like that. That the game is how it's designed and you can't just break the rules or change the rules. And that's not the case, because if you're playing World of Warcraft, obviously you can't decide that rogues backstabs don't do enough damage and then up the damage multiplier on the backstabs for your play session. Likewise, if you pop in a Final Fantasy game, however the mechanics work, that is how they work. And because you didn't program the game, it's not really up to you to change those. Now, on one level, you actually can change them, because there's mods for PC versions of these games like Skyrim or whatever. So you can actually change how the core mechanics operate, and it is a little bit more up to you. But it's so much more up to you if you're actually playing a tabletop game. Like I've talked about this on the channel before. This is the D&D starter set. I got this because I wanted one of these new boxes. It's definitely a limited set of rules, as much rules as you need to really begin playing the game, and honestly to play it all the way through. Because you can always add to the rules or alter them or enhance them in whatever way you see fit as you play. You can bring in rule sets from different versions if you want to. It's up to you how you want to play it. Here's the other thing too, is if you don't like the direction that Wizards of the Coast is taking Dungeons and Dragons, and in general, I prefer the older versions. And, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the people who work at Wizards of the Coast in terms of the things they say online and their hatred towards certain groups. So if I don't want to give them money, unfortunately I've given them some money, right? But if I don't want to give them money, well, I can just buy the older versions of the game too. That's what's also great about this. You don't have to play the most current version of Dungeons and Dragons. You can play version 3.5, and in fact, if you want to play some specific campaign or module or something like that you bought that's for 5th edition, it's not that hard if you have a DM who knows what he's doing to just like adapt it to whatever rule set you want to play with. So you can always just play version 3.5 or version 2 of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 1.0. You can do whatever you want. In fact, this is, I think, one of the things about the development of the game that you have to keep in mind, is that the game often doesn't develop because there's some problem with the previous version of the game, but rather because Wizards of the Coast is a company that needs to make money and therefore needs to come out with new products for people to buy. Otherwise, you have to just keep selling more versions of the original version, right? If there's only so many people who are going to play a tabletop RPG and they've all bought Dungeons & Dragons, you got to sell them the next version of Dungeons & Dragons. So that's we have to keep in mind, I think. The main impetus for putting out new versions of D&D is to make players buy new versions of D&D and try them out and get a different experience from them. I'm not saying it's without value, because it is a little bit of a different experience because the gameplay is different, but it's not something that is necessary for you to enjoy the game. You can merely purchase the older versions. And purchasing older versions, used books at a used bookstore or via Amazon or somewhere else, that's also, if you don't want to support that company, you're not supporting them by buying the older version, in my opinion. I don't see how you're supporting them when you do that. So you can always just play the older versions or use older rule sets, whatever you want to do in order to make the gameplay session enjoyable to you. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an anecdote to this direction. So some of the best memories I have of playing D&D were just playing with my friends in a casual setting. That is, we weren't taking the rule sets all too seriously, and we just wanted to have a good time. And one of the best times I had was doing what I call freestyling, which is we're not playing in a modular campaign or something like that with a map and places for people to explore, objectives that are set out. Rather, as a DM or as a game master, whatever you want to call it, the person who runs the show, I present them with areas to explore. I present them with scenarios to explore. And we didn't even use maps, right? We just used imagination. And I freestyle whatever the story is going to be, whatever direction they're going to take it. And I come up with new things for them to experience and new challenges for them. And so one of my favorite experiences, we played, I think, like all night long one time at my friend Ron's dinner table. And I just kind of came up with this adventure, and I had this idea because I could kind of feel, too much of a rule focus and not as much freewheeling kind of chaos as I like. So I imprisoned the party in a dream, but I didn't tell them that I imprisoned them in this little girl's dream. It's actually kind of a plot thing I stole from a Vampire Hunter D novel that maybe I'll talk about on the channel sometime. But anyway, I imprisoned them in this little girl's dream, and they didn't realize it. They were exploring the strange environment. They kept getting lost. They were attacked by monsters. And eventually they encountered a monster that was unkillable. Like, no matter how much damage they did to it, they couldn't kill it. And they had to kind of piece the clues together. And so at one point somebody figured out, I think we're trapped in a dream because the game is not following the rules. Like, the monster's not following the rules. Things are not working. And so they figured out that they could, if they're in a dream and they're lucid dreaming, they started doing things that you can only do in a dream. So they made up new spells that they thought could kill this monster. They decided to do new things with the dream that aren't in the rules. So they just made up whatever they wanted to do and did that. And it created a really, really unique and fun and interesting experience as they came up with new ways to kill an unkillable monster by creating new spells that would, target its weakness, and new things that they could do, leaping 100 feet in the air and blowing it up with bombs, whatever they wanted to do, because all the rules were out the window once they realized that they were in a dream, that things were going to be chaotic and whatever they wanted it to be, and they just needed to push the boundaries and see what was going to happen. And they had such a good time not only discovering that, but actually executing that to break free of this dream and then go back into a normal world where the standard rule set was actually being properly enforced, versus what they just thought it was being enforced up until a certain point where they realized it just really wasn't. So anyway, the whole point is, it's whatever experience you want it to be. And I've even heard of people, making their characters time travel back in time, and when they go back in time, they have to use 1.0 rules or something like that. What a fun idea. It can be whatever you want it to be, so don't stress too hard over some company which owns the IP, which had nothing to do with the creation of the game originally, deciding that this or that thing is not going to be in their game. You can put whatever you want in your game, because it's yours once you buy it, of course, or you can just play older versions, whatever version you think suits your playstyle. So that's about it. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're seeing this, Voices of the Void is still free on Amazon, I think. Last day is today, so go ahead and grab it, and there you go. It's a good one. Lovecraft Meets Aliens is what I call that book, and make sure you're on my mailing list, dvspress.com/list, for the upcoming fantasy book. I'll have hopefully some advanced preliminary copies going out at some point here, so check it out, and I'll see you guys next time.